Welcome to the Farming Without the Bank podcast, the show with a no BS approach to money, hosted by a farm strategy expert and authorized IBC practitioner. Join us as we get real and expose the flaws of traditional financial institutions in order to help farmers take control of their finances, create peace of mind, grow their wealth, and leave a legacy. Now, here's your host, Mary Jo Ehrman.
Hello, and welcome to today's podcast. Thank you for tuning in. I very much appreciate it. You know, if you guys have been listening and you are liking these podcasts, please figure out how to leave a review or a 5-star rating. I would appreciate that. I don't know how to do it on iTunes, so I can't even tell you how to do it, but somewhere in there you guys can leave a rating, and I would very much appreciate that. All right, today, let's talk about who's running your operation. And I am going to start this podcast with a warning. I am most likely going to piss somebody off. I'm going to offend somebody. The goal is to make you think and challenge your thought process a little bit. And the reason that this subject comes up is it actually comes up a lot when I am talking to anybody in any industry, but specifically farmers. And the reason why is because you will hear a farmer say, well, the bank shouldn't have lent me the money. I wouldn't be in this position if the banker didn't give me the money. And so we have to remember that the bank lent you the money when times were good because they saw that they could make a profit. And so I was talking to a farmer just recently, and this subject actually came up. And it was an older farmer in their 70s. So it's typically a mindset. Your older farmers typically have this mindset of the fact that the bank should take care of me. And this particular farmer said to me, well, we're in this position because the bank lent me the money. They shouldn't have lent me the money if I couldn't pay for it. And I said, but you wrote the check. You ultimately were the one that decided to buy whatever it is that you're buying. You ultimately were the one that did that. And so the bank, therefore, gave you the money. They're in the business of being profitable. They want the interest. They want the payment. And his reply to me was, but they're the ones that are supposed to be looking out for me. And my reply to him was why? It's not their business. Their business is to make money, not look out for you and your business. Why, as a farmer or a rancher or even a business owner, do we think that it's the bank's job to look out after us? Is this a conditioned thinking that the generation before the bank looked out for them? But as soon as they're not looking out for us, we are upset with them. But who ultimately's operation is it? It's your operation. You ultimately need to know the numbers. And when I told this farmer, I said, it's your operation. You need to know the numbers of what's going on. If you don't know the numbers, you're expecting the bank to run your numbers just because you're borrowing money from them? Why are we doing that? I don't go to the bank and expect them to know my numbers. There are other business owners that do, and you are a business owner. As a farmer and a rancher, whatever it is you're doing in the agriculture world, it is a business. You're running a business. What does your profit and loss show? What does your balance sheet show? Do you have somebody keeping those numbers for you? If you did, you won't need the bank to manage your operation because the bank shouldn't be. And I brought up the fact that in 2008, 9, and 10, we had a housing crisis. The banks were over-lending to everybody, and everybody was buying stuff they couldn't afford. Well, was it the bank's fault that they were over-lending? I should say, is it their fault alone that there was overlending going on? Or was it also responsibility on the person buying that house that you can afford it? Worst case scenario, that it is not 90% of your income as a payment. You didn't have any money down. We're buying houses with $0 down or 1% down, and now there's a housing crisis and the house is upside down. Is the fact that the value of the house went upside down your fault? No. But when a bank wants 20% down, that's not a bad thing to have some equity there in case something like that happens. And so if we're going to take advantage of the bank and their low interest rates and their scams of lending money, because essentially it's a darn scam. I mean, if you're going to lend you money on a house with nothing down and you take that offer, there is some negligence on your side and some responsibility on your side that you need to look at what's happening. Just like in the farming world or any business, if you're running a business and not looking at the numbers and letting the bank who's making money off of you decide if you should buy something or not, that responsibility falls back on you. Because you're the farmer, you know what commodity prices do. You know that they come up and down. So if they're going to go down, if we're buying stuff 5 to 7 years ago at a high price because commodities were high, we also have to anticipate that commodities are going to go low because it's not the first time this cycle has happened. This particular farmer told me in his years of farming, he has seen it happen 3 times. That we go to a super low and then we come up to a higher high. And he said, it's going to happen again. We're going to come back up to a high. And I said, well, can we eliminate some of the expense or can we pay attention to what we're doing so that when we're in a low, we know we can still make that payment because we didn't buy too high. Now, I get that there are natural disasters and I get that there are weather factors. I 100% understand that. In this last year, it's been tough. We've had a lot of different weather disasters that even caused things to be worse than commodity prices. Those sort of things we cannot anticipate. But are we letting the bank run our operation? If it's not the bank, is it the accountant? Are you sitting down with the accountant and going through your numbers and making sense of it all? Or are you just allowing the accountant to say, here you go, buy this to avoid taxes and not look out for the next 7 years and how it could affect your taxes, how it could affect your income? This is huge, people. We cannot just continue to point the finger at the bank or the accountant when we are the ones writing the check. If I don't manage my finances and people quit doing business with me after this podcast, probably, right? If I don't manage my finances and people quit doing business with me, guess what? I can't blame the bank and I can't blame the accountant for it. I can only blame me for overspending and buying something that I have payments on that I cannot afford. And I get it's not every situation. I understand shit happens once in a while. But at the end of the day, take a look at the big picture. When we, as a business owner, sit back and say, well, the bank told me to, we are not taking responsibility for our operation. We are letting the bank do that, and then we're upset when they won't give us money. Well, if we're letting them in control, then they have an ultimate decision. We're working for them because you're letting them run your operation. You're nothing more than an employee of the bank. If you're letting them do that, it's just a thought process or a notion that you own that business. You don't own that business if you're not the one running the books and seeing what's happening. If your banker is saying, hey, you get to plant this, this, and this, and I'm going to give you this much money for chemical and fertilizer and feed, and you need more, then who's running that operation? Not you, the bank. Okay. And you might have a great lender. You might have a great loan officer. And I've said this a million times. The lender and the loan officer The loan officer is your neighbor, he's your friend, he's your family member. He or she is probably not a bad person. They only have as much control as the board allows them to have. So it is the bank and the banking system. And then there are those lenders that are, trying to control everything. But again, you're using their money. If we could get ourselves away from the banking system and we would know our numbers and we were running our operation, we would know if we should be buying something or not. And when times are really good, the bank is going to be more than happy to give us the money. That is when you really need to sit back and say, do I need to buy something? Do I need to borrow money for a new combine or a new tractor so I can avoid taxes? We have to question the accountant. We have to question the bank because the bank is out to make money off of us. The accountant is processing some paperwork and he is looking at 1 year. What happens 7 years out? Can we make that payment? What does that look like on our taxes? If everything stayed the same, great. If it doesn't, what does that look like? I know I am beating a dead horse here. And I know you guys have done this the same over and over and over for generations. But it is time to stop. It is time to take a hard look at what's going on and take control of your own operation. Because we are not controlling it if we are allowing somebody else to tell us what our numbers need to be based on if they're going to lend us money or not. If we're running our operation based on the fact that the bank is going to lend us money or not, that is not the correct way to run an operation. It's not the correct way to run a business, period. We want to I don't even care if you don't use a policy. Even if you use cash, at least you're still in control of your operation. This is some serious conditioned thinking, people. And let me clarify, it is not your entire fault that you think this way, because that's how Dad thought. That's how Grandpa thought. That's how Great-Grandpa thought, right? For generations, this is what's been happening. For the last 103 years, this is what's been happening. Since farmers have been borrowing from the banks, and they have their sticky little fingers in on everything. And the conditioned thinking makes you believe that they have your best interest in mind. Sure, when good times come along, but when bad times happen, they don't want anything to do with you. Remember that in the good times. Figure out how to run your own numbers. Okay, I'm done. And you could say, thank God, because I'm sick of hearing her preach about this. You guys, I'm sorry to sound like a preacher today, but it is very hard to sit back and look at farmers who are saying the bank's running my operation and I don't know where I'm at and I'm frustrated and they're taking all my money and what are we going to do to change that? What do we need to do so that you can understand how to read a profit and loss statement? What do we need to do so that you can understand how to read a balance sheet? I'm not saying you need to do the bookkeeping, but we need to pay attention to it. We need to run those numbers. We need to know where we're profitable. And if we don't know where we're profitable, how do we know if we're making money? I talk to thousands of farmers. Those that have great cash flow are the same ones that know their numbers every single time I talk to them. They can print it out. It's right there in front of them. They know how to read it. They know where everything is going. Tracking that information is super important. And if you're not tracking it, I highly encourage you to find a bookkeeper that can do that for you. And unfortunately, what I've been told is that what the bank wants and what is happening at the accountant's office are not the same thing. So if we can get them so we can understand them and we know how we can understand what we're filling out for loan paperwork at the bank, if we can do those two things, we're going to be better off. And ask your banker to help you with those loan paperwork. How do we fill that out? Don't just slide it back across the table and say, here, fill this out for me. Because of the frustration level and the fact that you guys don't want to be doing paperwork. I get it. I 100% get it. because I hate paperwork. I hate it. It is not my thing. I hire people to do that. So if we can find somebody to help us and explain that, and ask your banker to explain it to you. If he can't explain it to you, fire him or go to somebody else within the bank that can explain it to you. It is not okay for the bank to just go, well, just fill it out. I'll just do this for you. And there's a big fight. If your banker doesn't want to explain it to you, why not? Why wouldn't he want to teach you so his job is easier or her job is easier, right? The accountant is the same thing. Ask the accountant questions. Have them explain things. If they can't explain it, you might need to find a new accountant. I ask tons of questions. I am the most annoying client because I want to know what happens when I buy something to avoid taxes. How much did I save? When the first time I did that and I saw how much money I saved, I was like, this is a joke. I didn't really save anything. Why would people do this? Like, it didn't make sense to me, but I did it because guess what? That's what you do until I had it explained. And then I was like, well, that doesn't make any sense at all. I'm not doing that again. That didn't save me anything. And it only saved me a little bit for year one. I'll just pay the taxes. But I asked the question, what's different with the tax code? What's going on with the tax code? What does that mean? Where does that come from? Last year, with some of the changes that we had, I had lots of questions. What's happening? What's going on? And I don't need to be an expert at it, but I need to understand where the benefits are and how they're working. And is it truly a benefit or is it just this smoke and mirror that says, oh, here, you can do this, but we're just going to transfer that wealth somewhere else. I'm going to buy something to avoid taxes and transfer that wealth to the bank. Because I had to borrow money to do that, or I had to give up interest that I could have otherwise earned. So I hope I didn't upset too many people, and I hope I challenged you to think a little bit and put it all into perspective about how it all works. Because ideally, that's what we want to do. Do what's best for us, and we run our operation. That is why we are farmers and ranchers and self-employed, because you want to run that operation. If you wanted to work for somebody, go punch a clock and get a guaranteed income every 2 weeks. Why let the bank run your operation and you're the one putting up all the risk and they're the ones in control? Stop giving them control. Okay. Thank you for tuning in. I so appreciate it. I hope that helped. I hope that made some sense and challenged you a little bit today and didn't just tick you off. Please, if there is a subject or anything that you want to hear, please just email me at maryjo@withoutthebank. I am very happy to address those subjects and talk about those. We are eventually going to have some guests on, which I am super excited about. So keep tuned in to hear from some clients. I have an accountant that is going to be a guest speaker at some point. So I just have to get those all scheduled in and then we will have them on. But otherwise, we will talk to you guys soon and you have a fantastic day.
Thanks for listening to the Farming Without the Bank podcast. We hope today's episode has inspired you to take control of your finances in new ways. Don't forget to check out our website, farmingwithoutthebank.com, and engage with us on our Facebook page, Farming Without the Bank. Join us next week as we smash more financial myths and empower you to accomplish your financial goals.